What does it take to start a war? An assassination? A fight over land and resources? How about a runaway dog? It sounds like a joke, but in 1925, a soldier chasing his pet across a border nearly plunged the Balkans into another bloody conflict. Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're diving deep into one of history's most bizarre and telling episodes, the War of the Stray Dog. To understand how a simple dog could cause an international crisis, we first have to rewind to the years just after World War I. The relationship between Greece and Bulgaria was, to put it mildly, terrible. These two nations had once been allies in the Balkan Wars, fighting together to push the Ottoman Empire out of Europe. But their victory quickly turned them into rivals. Both countries wanted the same lands, especially the regions of Macedonia and Western Thrace. By the time World War I broke out, they were on opposite sides. Bulgaria sided with Germany and the Central Powers, while Greece eventually joined the Allies. When the Allies won, Greece was rewarded, and Bulgaria was punished. The 1919 Treaty of Neuilly forced Bulgaria to hand over Western Thrace to Greece, a humiliating loss that cut off Bulgaria's direct access to the Aegean Sea. This left Bulgaria feeling bitter, resentful, and hungry to reclaim its lost territory. The years that followed were filled with tension. Paramilitary groups based in Bulgaria, like the infamous Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization, or IMRO, constantly launched raids across the border into Greece. They were essentially guerrillas trying to stir up trouble, hoping to eventually reunite the lands they saw as rightfully Bulgarian. The border town of Petrich in southwestern Bulgaria became a major hub for these fighters, a kind of lawless state within a state. Both countries were also politically unstable. In Greece, a military general named Theodoros Pangalos had seized power in a coup in June of 1925. Pangalos was a hardline nationalist dictator, known for his aggressive policies and even some bizarre personal rules, like trying to regulate the length of women's skirts. Meanwhile, Bulgaria was led by Prime Minister Alexander Tsankov, who had also come to power in a coup, but he was far more cautious when it came to foreign policy, knowing his country's military was weak. So you have this perfect storm, two old enemies, a tense and violent border, and two very different leaders. It was a powder keg, just waiting for a spark. And that spark came on October 18, 1925. On that day, a Greek soldier was on duty at a border post on Mount Belizitsa. Suddenly, his dog bolted and ran across the line into Bulgarian territory. Acting on instinct, the soldier ran after his pet, completely forgetting about the invisible but deadly line he was crossing. On the other side, Bulgarian sentries saw an armed Greek soldier running towards them. A shot rang out, and the Greek soldier fell to the ground, killed by a Bulgarian bullet. Chaos erupted immediately. The Greek guards at the post opened fire on the Bulgarian outpost, and the Bulgarians fired back. After the initial exchange of gunfire died down, a Greek captain decided to de-escalate the situation. Waving a white cloth as a flag of truce, he stepped out into the open, calling for a ceasefire. Tragically, his peace effort was met with more violence. He was shot and killed by Bulgarian riflemen. When the dust settled, 3 Greek soldiers, including a captain, were dead. News of the incident spread like wildfire, but the story changed depending on which side you were on. The Bulgarian government expressed regret, calling it a tragic misunderstanding, and even proposed a joint investigation. They clearly didn't want a war, but in Greece the story was very different. General Pangalos and the Greek newspapers conveniently left out the part about the stray dog. Their version claimed that Bulgarian forces had launched an unprovoked attack on a Greek outpost, murdering a captain and a sentry for no reason. This story was designed to whip up public anger and justify a strong response. And Pangalos did not hesitate. He issued a harsh ultimatum to Bulgaria, giving them just 48 hours to comply. He demanded an official apology, punishment for the soldiers responsible, and a payment of 2 million French francs as compensation to the victims' families. These were humiliating terms designed to be rejected. Bulgaria hesitated, and as the 48-hour deadline passed, they hadn't fully met the demands. That was all the excuse Pangalos needed. On October 22, 1925, he ordered the Greek army to invade Bulgaria. 2 divisions of the Greek army, numbering around 20,000 men, crossed the border. Pangalos called it a police action, not a war. But his goal was clear: to occupy the town of Petrich and teach Bulgaria a lesson. The Bulgarian army, limited in size by post-war treaties, was in no position to fight a full-scale war. They mounted a limited defense using border guards and local volunteers, including those same IMRO guerrilla fighters who knew the terrain inside and out. Fierce skirmishes broke out on the outskirts of Petrich. The Greeks managed to capture several villages, and some reports claimed they even entered the town itself, though other accounts suggest the town's defenders held them off. For several days, the situation hung on a knife's edge. It looked like a full-blown Balkan war was about to begin. But the Bulgarian government had a clever plan. Knowing they couldn't win on the battlefield, they decided to fight in the courtroom of international opinion. They sent an urgent appeal to the League of Nations in Geneva, the forerunner to our modern United Nations. They pleaded for the world to intervene and stop the Greek invasion. This was a major test for the young League of Nations. The Balkans had started the First World War just a decade earlier, and no one wanted a repeat. The League acted with a speed that was almost unheard of for the organization. The Council, which included major powers like Britain, France, and Italy, convened immediately. They sent urgent telegrams to both Greece and Bulgaria, ordering an immediate ceasefire and demanding that Greece withdraw its troops. That telegram reportedly arrived just a few hours before the Greek army was scheduled to launch its final, all-out assault on Petrich. Under immense international pressure, Greece had no choice but to back down. Around October 29th, the fighting stopped. The War of the Stray Dog, which had lasted about 10 days and cost around 50 lives, mostly Bulgarian civilians, was over. Now the diplomatic battle began. The League of Nations sent a commission of inquiry to the region to figure out what happened and who was to blame. The final verdict was a stunning blow to Greece. The League condemned the Greek invasion as a disproportionate and aggressive act. They ordered Greece to pull all its troops out of Bulgaria immediately. And to add insult to injury, they ordered Greece to pay 45,000 British pounds in compensation to Bulgaria for the damages and loss of life. General Pangalos was absolutely furious. He publicly slammed the League for its hypocrisy. He pointed out that just 2 years earlier, in 1923, Italy had invaded the Greek island of Corfu after an Italian general was killed on Greek soil. In that case, the League of Nations, under pressure from Italy, a major power, actually forced Greece, the victim, to pay reparations to Italy, the aggressor. Pangalos angrily declared that the League seemed to have two rules, one for powerful nations like Italy and another for weaker ones like Greece. He had a point. The double standard was obvious. But his protests fell on deaf ears. The international community had made its decision, and Greece, isolated and facing global disapproval, had to accept it. So what were the long-term consequences of this strange little war? For one, it had a huge impact on Greek-Bulgarian relations. By resolving the crisis through diplomacy instead of all-out war, it actually helped stabilize the border. Both sides learned that military escalation would be met with international condemnation. The aggressive General Pangalos was overthrown in another coup less than a year later, partly because his disastrous handling of the Petrich incident had made Greece a pariah. The incident also became a major, if temporary, victory for the League of Nations. It was hailed as a textbook example of successful collective security. Here was proof that an international body could actually step in and stop a war before it spiraled out of control. A famous British political cartoon from the time showed Greece and Bulgaria as two angry characters fighting, while a dove of peace representing the League stepped in to separate them. It cemented the idea that in the new post-war world there was an alternative to endless cycles of revenge and retaliation. Of course, this success story came with a warning. The Greek complaint about double standards was a sign of the League's future weakness. It showed that its power depended on the willingness of great nations to enforce its rules. A willingness that would famously disappear in the 1930s when faced with aggression from Japan, Italy, and Germany. But for a brief moment in 1925, the system worked. The War of the Stray Dog became a classic historical anecdote, a story used to illustrate how even the most trivial event can ignite a conflict when the underlying tensions are high enough. It stands as a reminder that the line between peace and war can be fragile, and sometimes All it takes to cross it is one man chasing his loyal but unruly pet. And what about the dog, the four-legged creature who started it all? Its fate, sadly, remains unknown. We'll never know if it survived the gunfire or ever found its way back home. Its story is lost to history, leaving behind only the legend of the war it accidentally started. So, what are your thoughts on this? Is it the most absurd reason for a war you've ever heard? Let us know down in the comments. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.